All right, let's talk about AI. It's one of the biggest, most complicated topics out there right now. But what if I told you there's a hidden pattern, a rhythm that repeats itself throughout all of human history that can actually help us make sense of this moment? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on that pattern. Let's get into it.
You've probably heard this quote before, and it's the perfect place for us to start. The idea is that even though the world is always changing, the big shifts, the revolutions, they tend to have a familiar feel, an echo of the past. So if we want to understand the AI revolution, we just need to learn how to hear that rhyme.
And trust me, this rhyme echoes through every single major turning point for humanity. I'm talking from the invention of farming all the way to the digital age. There's this recognizable pattern that plays out, and if we can trace it, we can see exactly where we are today.
You know, it's a totally human thing to feel, right? To think that this time, right now, is completely different from anything that's ever happened before. And look, in some ways, it is. But if you zoom out and take that wider historical view, you start to see we've been on this kind of ride before. We followed this surprisingly consistent path of invention and, well, consequence.
So what is this pattern? What's the secret formula? We're going to uncover it by looking at three massive transformations that completely remade society. Each one was kicked off by a new kind of tool, and each one followed the exact same three-step dance.
Let's start at the beginning, with the agricultural revolution. The breakthrough tools here weren't made of metal or silicon. They were alive. By domesticating plants and animals, we basically hacked our environment. We gave ourselves the power to control our own food supply for the first time ever. And boom, right there is the first part of our pattern. The immediate win was massive, a predictable food supply. That meant we could build villages, cities, civilizations. But there was a hidden price tag, one we didn't see for a long time. Things like soil depletion, becoming dependent on just a few crops, a whole new and sometimes fragile relationship with nature.
Okay, now let's fast forward thousands of years to the Industrial Revolution. The new tools here were all about machines, the steam engine, the factory. These things didn't just help us work the land, they automated physical work itself. They basically supercharged human muscle on a scale that was just unimaginable before.
See? The pattern rhymes. The gain was a huge explosion in productivity, the birth of a global economy. But the cost? Well, once again, it was systemic. And it was delayed. It broke apart communities as everyone moved to the cities for work, and it kicked off a pollution problem that we are literally still cleaning up today.
And that brings us to a revolution most of us have lived through, the digital revolution. The big tools this time were networks and algorithms. They didn't extend our muscles, they extended our minds, our memory, our ability to do math, and our power to talk to anyone, anywhere, instantly.
By now, this should be feeling pretty familiar, right? The gain was incredible, a totally connected planet, all of human knowledge in your pocket. But the cost is something we're living with right now, deep social polarization, and the weird reality that our own attention is now the product being bought and sold.
So there it is, the three-part pattern in all its glory. First, we invent a new tool that extends a basic human ability, our control over nature, our muscle, our memory. Second, that tool gives us a massive leap forward in what we can do. And third, that leap creates huge, unforeseen problems that we only really start to understand way, way later.
Which of course brings us to right now. We can take this exact pattern and lay it over what's happening with AI. We are in the first moments of a brand new revolution. It follows the same logic, but this time it's targeting something we've never ever automated before, thought itself. This is the cognitive revolution.
AI fits the pattern like a glove, but instead of extending what our hands or muscles can do, it's extending and automating cognition, the actual process of thinking, learning, and creating. Put it this way, the Industrial Revolution automated physical labor. The AI revolution is automating mental labor.
But here's where the story takes a massive critical turn. Because even though AI follows the historical pattern, there is one thing that makes this revolution fundamentally different from all the others. It's mind-blowing exponential speed.
This quote from technologist Oz Raskin just nails it. Nukes don't make stronger nukes, but AI makes stronger AI. This is something called recursive self-improvement. And it's simple, really. For the first time ever, we've built a tool that can be used to make itself smarter. That creates a feedback loop that just skyrockets progress. And to give you a sense of that speed, just think about this. The printing press, a world-changing technology, took about 50 years to reach 10 million people. 50 years! ChatGPT hit that same number in less than a week.
The time we used to have to adapt, which was generations, has shrunk down to a single news cycle.
And that creates this giant mismatch, doesn't it? Our laws, our institutions, our entire economy, they were all designed for the slow, steady, human-powered change of the industrial age. They are just not built to keep up with the exponential speed of a technology that thinks for itself.
So yeah, it can feel a little overwhelming, but here's the good news. Understanding this historical pattern doesn't just help us see the problem, it actually gives us a roadmap for the solution. It shows us what we need to do to steer this thing, to navigate it with intention, instead of just getting swept away.
If AI's killer feature is its ability to improve itself, then our biggest challenge has to be improving ourselves right alongside it. You can call it recursive responsibility. It means we have to upgrade our own wisdom, our foresight, and our empathy just as fast as we're upgrading our code.
So how in the world do we do that? Well, we need to get good at using a new set of mental tools. First, systems thinking, seeing how one change over here causes ripples everywhere else. Second, emotional intelligence, making sure that as our machines get smarter, we get more human, more empathetic. Third is strategic foresight, which is just the skill of imagining and preparing for lots of different futures, not just the one we think is going to happen. And finally, anticipatory governance, which is a fancy way of saying we need to start fixing problems before they become full-blown disasters.
You know, in the end, the big lesson from history is actually a pretty hopeful one. The tool itself is never the final word. Our destiny isn't written in lines of code. It's shaped by the mindset we bring to that code, the values we decide to build in, the goals we set, and the foresight we use. That's what's going to determine how this all plays out. And that leads us to the final, most important question. AI is already changing the world. That's not really up for debate anymore. The real question is whether we, as people, as a society, can change ourselves fast enough to guide this incredible new power toward a future we actually want to live in. The revolution isn't just happening out there, it's happening in here too.